are not able to join, I'm just informing them to join immediately. But you can go ahead with this number of participant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, even yesterday, I think the students they kept on joining during the session. So
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think we will have a good number of 8 to 9 students, I think, at the end of it. So that's okay.
जी जी.
Okay, sir.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you
Thank you
so
very
much.
much. Thanks. Yes.
Okay, so we meet again, and we will take on uh, the discussions where we left yesterday. So we were doing the first block of our BSW121, that is a professional social work. And yesterday we have been discussing some of the important concepts of social work. Today we will be continuing with the first block only. So I will just uh, share my screen for you all to see. Just a moment. So I hope you can all see. Okay. So we will be doing this. We will be continuing with the chapter where we were discussing the different concepts. So here it is social work and social action. Now, social work, as we know, it is a comparatively new discipline which arose as a need to provide relief to the people or the population in need of certain help, certain professional help or assistance. And it gradually it grew into a semi-profession or a profession where people started using expert knowledge and technical skills for providing help to the people who were in need. Okay. Now, in the initial stage, it was concerned with helping people to solve their psychosocial problems. So, when we study the origin of social work, we will find that it actually started with some concepts of friendly visitors, where these people they used to go, they visit the houses of the people who are having some kind of a personal problem, and then they used to discuss these problems with them, and then they used to plan intervention accordingly. So it started with this solving their psychosocial problems, which obstructed their effective social functioning. But in due course of time, it was realized that social living it operates at a much practical plane, and there are three distinct levels where we have to plan our interventions accordingly. The first level is at the individual level where we are working with individuals. We are trying to see the problems that they are facing, which is a help, which is, these problems, it could be in relation to their personal life, it could be in relation to their professional life, or whatever. On the second is the social group. That is, we are working at the group level. So here we will be planning interventions at the group level. So group is defined as it is basically a collection of two or more individuals which come together to carry out certain objective, okay, to fulfill certain objective. And finally, we have the community. So community is, you can say, it is a larger group which consists of people belonging to different families, and they work together. They have kind of a we feeling, and they reside in a particular geographical area. So basically, we will be dealing with working at the individual level, at the group level, and finally at the community level. So there was a need for dealing with them separately by developing three different methods of social work. So then we developed these methods known as a social casework, which dealt with working with individuals and solving their personal problems. The second was social group work, which involved working with groups. And finally, community organization, which dealt with communities at large. This community could be people living in rural community, it could be any cultural group, it could be an urban community, a neighborhood, or anything. And in due course of time, they were accepted as the three primary methods of social work. So, as we will study these methods in details later, these arose as the three primary methods of social work, which we had to apply whenever we were working in the field. It was also realized that while providing social work help by these three methods, there was always a need for providing some social welfare services, or some gathering validated knowledge. And this realization finally culminated into the development of two methods of social work. First was what is known as a social welfare administration. That is, how do you administer the social welfare programs? And second is a social work research. That is, carrying out researches in the field of social work. Now, these two methods they developed as the secondary method or as auxiliary methods of social work, and in due course of time, they became very, very important when we study social work. Now, there was a serious need felt since psychosocial problems have their roots in faulty social structure and system, and any client facing problems have their roots in the problems. Okay, they be held responsible for his or her problems, and there was a need for evolving and including some weapon in the armory of social work, which could play a significant role in bringing about the desired changes in the society. And therefore we had the third method, which came into being, which is known as a social action. Okay, so social action meant at bringing about changes in the social structure per se. Now, researchers in social services have continuously established that since various dimensions of social reality are indivisible, social reality has to be taken as an integrated whole. Okay, now what happens in order to understand social work? Some important definitions for social work were given. Like, for example, there were definitions which was given by Fink, by Wilmer, by Flexner. I will just give one example of social work that was given by Wilmer. So the prime function of social work is to give assistance to individuals in regard to the difficulties they encounter in their use of an organized group service or in their performance as a member of an organized group. So we have different definitions of social work, which was given by different, uh, you know, uh, practitioners of social work. So you can just go through these definitions and see which definition you find it easy to remember. So whenever you get question where you have to give definition or define a particular concept, I already explained it to you yesterday that you are supposed to give at least 3 to 4 definitions of the for the same of different scholars. And please understand that these definitions have to be verbatim. That is, you will write those definitions as it is. Okay. So you have to make good, remembrance of these definitions. So if we look at the various definitions which has been given for social work, we find out that it is very difficult to define social work, but still keeping in view its historical development from service to professional service and its concern from helping people in need to changing the social system, we may define social work as it's an honorary or paid work which is done by making use of scientific knowledge and technical skills with humane and democratic outlook to render help to people in need, to enable them to realize their potentials optimally, to perform their social roles effectively, and to live in a free, decent, and dignified manner, particularly by introducing the required changes in personality as well as the social structure. So basically, any work in social work may be honorary, it may be paid, but it uses some scientific knowledge and technical skills in order to bring about changes in the social structure, in order to suggest some kind of interventions for people, who are having some kind of a problem. at individual level or group level or community level, and to help them live a life which is free, which is decent, which is dignified, you know, where they enjoy every aspect of equality and respect in the society. Okay, and which helps them to bring about required changes in their personality. Okay, so this is basically all about social work. And then we come to the important characteristics. So first, the characteristic of social work includes including a specialized kind of work. So social work is a specialized kind of work. Second, it is performed by persons who are specifically trained to do this. So formal training is something which is very much important. Third, training for social work equips social workers with some specialized kind of scientific knowledge and technical skills. So when you get this education of social work, then you are able to gather some specified skills and technical knowledge. Okay, then it adopts the required strategy according to the nature of the problem it deals with and its root causes, which may lie in the personality structure of the person who is facing problem, or in the unequalitarian and unjust social system of which he or she is a part. So basically, you will be adopting a strategy which is required to solve the problem. Basically, you will be planning appropriate interventions. Then, strategy used in social work may introduce changes in the personality of individuals or bringing about transformations in the overall social structure. Okay, so it may be in different at different levels. Social work also promotes human and social development, ensures fulfillment of human rights, and guarantees performance of social duties, obligation towards family members, people in the community, and members of society at large. And finally, social worker may accept compensation for the work done by him or her, either from those who engage him or those who benefit from the work. Okay, so all of these things are there, which are the major characteristics of a social work. Now, after understanding social work as a profession, we come to the concept of social action. What exactly do you understand by social action? Now, the concept of social action comprises of three components. Okay, the first is social being, third is a social context or a situation, second, and third means inspiration. So, basically, the concept of social action has its roots in the discipline of sociology. Now, what is sociology? Sociology is a discipline, it's a social science which studies society. Okay. Now, social action is to be distinguished from behavior in that it involves meaning or intention. So, social action in sociology is analyzed in terms of typical actors in typical situation by identifying actors' goals, their expectations, and values. So you will always have, in a social action, you will always have a person who is the actor, who is performing the work within a particular social context or a given situation. So he or she who is performing the work is living in a particular situation, okay, and is getting those inspiration to do the work. Okay, for and this inspiration may come from achieving certain goals, you know, it may be from the expectations and the values and the nature of situation or the actor's knowledge of that situation. So basically this is what social action is. Okay, so basically social action is all about putting your efforts to bring about changes or prevent changes in a current social practices or situations through education, okay, through propaganda, through putting about, persuasion, or basically in behalf of the objectives believed by the social actionists to be socially desirable. So we try to bring about those changes which are deemed to be socially desirable. So basically, It may be an individual effort, it may be a group effort, or it may be a community effort within the framework of social work philosophy and practice that aims to achieve social progress, to help bring solutions to social problems, and to improvise the social legislations and the welfare services. So, this is all about what is known as social action. Now, there are some important characteristics of social action. First of all, it is a method of social work which is practiced in close collaboration with other methods. So it will be practiced in collaboration with other methods like casework, group work, community organization, etc. It aims at bringing about changes in the social structure and the social system. Okay. And third, the process of social change sought to be introduced through social action may be reformative in nature, directed towards eradication of social evils, or it may be developmental in nature, which is geared towards creation of new institutions. Okay. Then this social action also seeks to usher in the desired changes in society through the conscientization process, through the awareness generation process, through the promotion of social integration, formation and strengthening of people's organizations. All of these may be used as a method to carry out social action. Okay. And the very basic nature of social action is non-violent in nature. That is, when you are carrying anything under the auspices of social action, you have to carry out the activity in a non-violent manner. That is, violence has no place when you're talking about social action. Then, social action as a method, it contemplates that all power is taken away from the so-called do-gooders. Okay. And it should actually be transferred to the people who are the intended beneficiaries. And in order to achieve this, it takes recourse to desired transformation in social policies, laws, plans, and programs. Okay. So this is all about social action. After this, we come to the next topic, that is the emergence of social work abroad. That is, it talks about the emergence of social work in the global scenario. So, how social work emerged in different countries like United Kingdom, like United States of America, and how the methods of social work have their roots in these countries, how the evolution of social work methods happened, how the quest for professional status for social work, started. So all of this will be discussed in this particular unit. So we will be basically um, talking about the development of social work as a profession and as a discipline of study. Okay. So we will be also tracing the history of the evolution of social work in UK and USA primarily. Uh, okay. And basically what happens, usually the social work has its roots mainly in these two countries, that is United Kingdom and United States of America. It's basically the way it is being practiced at present. Okay. it has um, it has its roots basically as in these two countries of UK and USA, and from these two countries it has spread to other parts of the world, like in Europe, in Latin American countries, in Asian countries, in African countries, in Australia, New Zealand. So basically, starting from these two countries, USA, UK, and USA, social work as a professional discipline, it spread to other countries. Now, generally, it emerged as a profession early in the 20th century. Okay, and uh, and basically, the philosophical and historical basis of social work and social welfare, It's basically can be traced back to the history in United Kingdom. Now, when we talk about the history, if you want to understand basically how this emerged, then we have to go back a little further into the history of United Kingdom. Okay. Now, when we talk about the primitive societies or the folk societies, we know that the family or the tribe, the larger family or the tribe, took over the support of those whose needs were not satisfied in the normal way. Generally, you know that basically children who were deprived of parental support were taken into the homes of relatives or they were adopted by the childless couples. So, this is how the community looked after individuals. Food resources were shared among the relatives and neighbors, and when the feudal system gave way to the wage economy, legislation was enacted to compel the poor to work. Now, in Europe in the early Christian era, when you talk about this, the folk tradition continued, and the faithful considered it a religious obligation to take care of the members of the group who could not care for themselves. Okay, and religion was considered to be the greatest motivation for charity. So, after some time, the welfare, the shift from the church responsibility to the government responsibility was really as a relief was first seen in a restrictive legislation which forbade any kind of begging and vagrancy. So when you see the history of legislation in England, you will find that between 1350 to 1530, a series of laws were enacted, which are known as the Statutes of Laborers. Okay, these were designed to force the poor to work, and the decreasing authority of the church and the increasing tendency to shift responsibility to the government authorities, it gave rise in England to a series of measures which culminated into the famous Elizabethan Poor Law of 1601. Now, what exactly is this Elizabethan Poor Law of 1601? Now, it was basically uh, it's kind of you can say that it represented the final form of the poor law legislation in England. Okay, which came up after three generations of political, religious, and economic changes that happened in Europe. Okay, and the law distinguished between the three classes of the poor. The first poor were the able-bodied poor. Okay, who were forced to work in the house of corrections or the workhouse. The second were the impotent poor who were unable to work, generally the sick or any form of, sorry, people who were suffering from any kind of disease, or the young children, or mothers with young children. These were the impotent poor. And the third were the dependent children. These generally were the orphans and the children who have been deserted by their parents. Now, the poor law of 1601, it set the pattern of relief which was provided under the government, and it was said that it was basically a responsibility of the government to take care of the poor, okay, and to help them. And it established the principle that the local community, namely the parish, had to organize and finance the poor relief for its residents. Now, what was the influence of the Elizabethan Poor Law? First of all, the principle of the state's responsibility for relief. This was universally adopted. Okay. Second, the principle of local responsibility for welfare, enunciated in the Poor Law, it goes back to 1388, and it stipulates that the sturdy beggars return to their birthplaces and seek relief there. Okay. And then a third influence was that the third principle, it stipulated differential treatment of individuals according to categories. Okay, so they were divided into different categories. And the poor law also delineated family responsibility for aiding dependents. So they said that basically it was, you can say that it was quite a noteworthy law, and it was considered to be a very progressive law when it was enacted. And it has served as a basis for both English and American public welfare. Now, after over a period of time, this Elizabethan Poor Law in 1601, it went through a lot of revisions, okay, and from the various reports that came up after various parliamentary committees were formed, and subsequently they decided upon a lot of revisions to the poor laws, and these revisions were done between the period of 1834 to 1909, okay. And upon the basis of the committee's reports, the following principles were enunciated. First was a doctrine of least eligibility. Second was the re-establishment of the workhouse test. And third was the centralization of control. Now, the doctrine of least eligibility meant that the conditions of the poor people shall in no case be so eligible as the condition of persons of the lowest class subsisting on the fruits of their own industry. That is, person receiving aid was to be as well off. Okay. According to the second principle, the able-bodied poor they could apply for assistance in the public workhouse. Okay, and the third principle stated that the central authority, consisting of the three people, poor law commissioners, they had power to consolidate and coordinate the poor law services throughout the land. So this is how the various changes were made, and different revisions were made to the poor laws. After that, again another report came, which was under the leadership of Sir William Beveridge, which is known as the Beveridge Report, and they gave a lot of different suggested some major principles related to the social insurances and allied services. Okay, now we have studied yesterday the concept of social insurance, and the Beveridge report had said that every citizen needs to be covered under the social insurance. They also said that a major risk of loss of earning, okay, including in sickness, unemployment, accident, old age, widowhood, maternity, etc., to be included in a single insurance, and a flat rate of contribution to be paid regardless to the contributor's income, and a flat rate of benefit to be paid also without regard to income as a right to all who qualify. So basically, all these were, were done, and this report it came up with included the social insurance schemes for every individual. Now, after this, there was this another important development that happened, which is known as the beginning of the Charities Organization Society movement and the Settlement House movement. Now, in England, where the problem of competing and overlapping social services has been increasing, a group of public spirited citizens they founded what is known as the London Charity Organization Society. Okay, this was formulated by Octavia Hill and Samuel Barnett in 1869. Okay, and both of them they introduced a system of friendly rent collecting as a method of improving the slum housing. They communicated to the volunteers certain principles or laws which were to be followed in their activities. Okay. And also, they stressed that each case and each situation must be individualized. And every individual must be treated with respect for his or her privacy and independence. And also, it advised that the workers not to judge the tenants by their personal standards, and it was said that the value of dignity of even the most degraded of the tenants that needs to be considered. Now, Samuel Augusta Barnett was the founder of the Toynbee Hall. Now, Toynbee Hall is considered to be the first settlement house. Okay. Now, this was done with an attempt to improve the living conditions of the slums in Whitechapel. That was an area where they tried to improvise the conditions of the slums. Now we know that that was a period where the industrial revolution had started, and as a result of the influx of people from the surrounding areas, a lot of problems had come up, Okay, people, they were coming to these so-called urban centers with a view to get you know improvise their standard of living and to get employment opportunities in the newfound factories. And as a result of this, all of the major cities in Britain, including London, they started having the problem of urban agglomeration, or you can say the coming up of slum areas. And as we know that most of these slum areas had basic problems, including a lack of basic provisions, proper provisions for like health and sanitation, and proper lighting, proper, all of these facilities were very much lacking in these slum areas. These were generally inhabited by the workers who were being very lowly paid, and most of them, they had a lot of problems relating to the poverty and other different aspects. Now, so this is was they generally it was you can say that uh, this was done in order to improve the conditions of the people who were living in these slum areas, which were mostly the families of the workers of the factories. Okay. Now, after moving from United Kingdom, we will go to the history of social work in the United States of America. Now, what happened? There were three important social movements which happened during the last half of the 19th century. Okay. Now, US also was experiencing an increased number of social problems as a result of a lot many changes happening in the societies like industrialization, urbanization, immigration, together with the massive growth of the population. So what all the problems that are facing by the that are being faced by the developing countries now, these countries were facing these problems in the later part of the 19th century because of the rapid industrialization. Now here we this period was characterized by three important social movements. One is what is known as the charity organization societies, which began in 1877 in Buffalo, New York. The second organization was the settlement house movement, which began in 1886 in New York City. And the third was a child welfare movement, which was a result of severely loosely related developments, notably the Children's Aid Society and the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, which began again in New York City between 1853 and 1875. So basically, these three important social movements, they laid the foundation for developing of the professional social work in United States of America. Now, the first was the charities organization society. This movement was eventually made by it was started by Humphreys Gurteen, who was an English clerk and who has been impressed with the charity organizations that was formulated in London earlier. Okay, and he started the first charities organization society in United States with the help of some other fellow workers. Okay, and within a period of 15 years, these agencies, they established and they established themselves in 92 different American cities. So basically, it saw a very rapid rise of this society. And the beginning of professional approach to the problems of human needs, it can be seen in the philosophy of the COS movement. So they talked about the scientific charity. So this was the attitude which was adopted by the COS, which enabled them to understand and cure poverty and family disorganization problems. So instead of just assisting them on a short-term basis, they wanted to basically solve the problem for a long-term basis and to give it a more scientific approach. And that is why they gave this concept of a scientific charity attitude. Okay, and they wanted to apply science to social welfare in the same way that it had been applied to the fields of medicine and engineering. Now, these leaders they replaced the chaotic charity with a rational system that would focus on investigation, on coordination, and on the personal services. Okay. Now, here, each case was to be considered individually, thoroughly investigated, and assigned to a friendly visitor. So, you had people who were called as friendly visitors who used to go to their houses, make home visits, and then look into every case depending upon the requirement. So they used to speak to the clients, they used to talk to the family members, they used to talk to other people. Just a moment, just give me a minute. Okay, I'm sorry. So then you talk about, we were talking about the COS movement. So these they started sending individuals for home visits, and they were called as the friendly visitors. Most of these friendly visitors were basically women who used to go. They used to go to the client's house. They used to speak to them. They used to see what were the major problems that the individuals were facing, and depending upon the problems faced by them, they used to come up with appropriate solutions or intervention plan. Okay. Now, the charities, organization, societies, it gradually fostered the development of the family service agencies, okay, which are practicing today. And the practice of family casework, family counseling, schools of social work, employment services, legal aid, and many other programs which are a part and parcel of the social work as it is practiced in USA today. After the COS, we come to the settlement house movement. This was another important development, okay, in US, which began in the late 1800s. And this was modeled after the Toynbee Hall, which was founded in England, as we have said by Samuel Barnett. Many establishment settlement houses were established in cities across the country, including the Chicago Hull House. So you have different settlement houses which were formulated and which started their working. These settlement houses they combine social advocacy and the social services was a response to the social disorganization that resulted from the widespread industrialization, urbanization, and immigration. Okay, now through the group work and the neighborhood organizing strategies, the settlement houses they establish neighborhood centers and they offer various services like providing the citizenship training, providing adult education, counseling, recreation facilities, daycare for children, etc. So these settlement house workers, they were generally used to be very young college graduates from wealthy families who used to help these people. But mostly they were voluntary workers. Okay. So these settlement houses, the leaders of these houses, they believe that changing the neighborhood can improve the communities, and by changing communities, they can develop a better society. So it was more kind of an initial part of the group work and the community organization work, which were which started with the settlement house movement. After we come to the child welfare movement, this was basically started to prevent any kind of cruelty to children, and this was done in began in New York City. Okay, and this was traced back to 1729 when the Ursuline sisters they established an institution in New Orleans. Okay, for parents of children who were massacred by Indians. So now Indians here it means the original inhabitants of United States. Okay, they were generally called as the Red Indians or the different tribes which were inhabiting United States at that point of time. So you know when the earlier settlers they went there, there was a very frequent fighting between the original settlers over there who were the tribes, and then there was the settlers who had come from Europe. So this was basically restricted to the children welfare and protecting the rights of the children. After this, we will study the evolution of the different social work methods. Here you have the first is the social casework. Now, this was the first method which was developed and studied, and it began with the Charities Organization Society. Okay, um, the case for social casework has been given first by in the book Social Diagnosis, which was written by Mary Richmond, who identified the various principles, theories, and methods of social casework. Okay, that is working with individuals. um, After that, a lot of changes took place when the Freudian concepts in psychology were introduced. After the Freudian psychology was introduced, a lot of changes took place in the concept of social casework, and this was basically um, uh, in usually in the later years, and the agencies they gradually adopted these concepts, and they started working with the um, people who had some individual problems. Okay, they were facing some kind of an individual problems, and they adopted the various principles as given in the Freudian psychology. The social workers they used to work with these people, and they used to basically reinforce the reinforce the psychological tests and other widespread use of intelligence quotient and others in order to study the psychological processes of individuals. So this way it became very clinical in its approach, and in due course of time social casework it became a very important method of social work, and in most of the Western countries social casework is one of the most important used and most frequently used method of social work. After that we come to the group work and the community organization work. Generally, we will find that social group work and community organization methodologies they started the they were given acceptance and recognition during the 40s and the 50s. Okay, now group work uses small group interaction as a vehicle for social change. So basically, we work with a group of people, normally 8 to 10 group people will be there in a group, and then we start to work with them on various issues. Okay, so And community organization is all about working with the larger community. And both of these methods, they emphasize the situational context of behavioral changes. Now, voluntary agencies and settlement houses, they had began the development of the professional group work, and the Community Chess and Councils of America. Now it is known as the United Community Funds and Councils of America. This was established in 1918. Okay, and this officially inaugurated what is now known as community organization. Now, the inclusion of the group work and community organization, this became acceptable in the group work methods, okay, as group work methods. And this became gradually, they became very important methods of social work along with the social casework. Now we come to how the quest for professional status started. So we know that earlier this professional status was not assigned to social work. Now by the 1890s, there was a felt need and a strong desire among the COS personnel for granting professional status to social work, and there were a lot of reasons that were attributed to it. First of all, professionalization was a major trend at that point of time. You know, apart from professionals like medicine and engineering, they started use of science, applying scientific method to solving the practical problems, and that is why they said that it is important to start considering social work as a profession. Second, they were also individuals who needed to earn a living. So they said ki, okay, apart from providing help to individuals, we also start earning through this. Third, a new class of women who all were educated and wanted careers outside of home, that was emerging. So this was also one important reason why they wanted to professionalize this. And the fourth reason was that the paid charity workers as well as the volunteers, they were discovering the immense complexity of the tasks they were facing. So dealing with problems of individuals or groups or communities is not an easy task. There you have to apply a lot of scientific principles, a lot of other skills to to come with certain intervention. So they said that since it is a very complicated task, okay, so this requires some kind of professional training and education, and that is why you need to professionalize this particular discipline. So these were the reasons that a powerful movement to develop training and research centers, it started after 1890s. Now, apart from that, there were a lot of practitioners of social work at that point of time who said that social work should be developed as a professional discipline. Okay, and there was a need to recognize the contributions of social workers, especially uh, the, uh, the skills that they are using, the scientific methodologies that they are engaging in order to help people, in order to come up with basic interventions. So you have different people like Flexner is there. Greenwood was another person who championed this cause of turning social work into a profession. Now, for the first step to establish charity work as a profession was the establishment of the training schools. Okay, and many social workers like Anna Dawes, Mary Richmond, they argued for the need of education and training for professional professionals and the development and systematization of the accumulated knowledge and expertise gained by social workers. So the Summer School of Philanthropy. This was a 6-week program which was under the sponsorship of the New York Charity Organization Society. This began in 1898, and this was basically the first school of which provided some kind of a training to the people to work in the field of social work. Now, after we understand the evolution of the discipline of social work, how it evolved as a discipline, now let us move into the social work education. How does the social work education, how can it be traced to the initial days? Now we find that the education for social work, it started, has its origins in Europe, where social work education evolved from the work of the Victorians in London, okay, who attempted to develop models of charity work. And the first 2 year full time teaching in social work started in 1899 in Amsterdam. Okay, so the Amsterdam Institute of Social Work Training, it is credited to be the first 2 year training program with theory and practice. Okay, now this is actually in Netherlands, and the real beginning, however, of the social work education are found in Octavia Hill's training of volunteers in the housing management and the friendly visiting in 1870s. So we have already seen how this basically this training program started. She worked in the slum neighborhoods of London and initially trained volunteers and later full-time workers. Now, after that, we come to the, this training which was pioneered by this Women's University Settlement, was established in 1887. And this group evolved into the organized courses and ultimately into professional education for social work. Another important beginning was a 1 year training course in the social work for young women initiated in Germany by Alice Salomon in 1899. So these all they started some or the other kind of a training program for people to work as a professional social workers. Now, in the beginning, um, the beginning of social work education in Britain, this can be traced to the close of the 19th century, where they organized education for social work in the continental Europe and North America early in the 1900s. Okay. Now, in North America, we have seen the Summer School of Philanthropy work that started, and this gave provided a training to the people, and it was inspired by Mary Richmond and organized by the charity organization Society of New York. So the course actually consisted of a number of lectures, discussions, you know, conducting inquiries, visiting agencies and institutions, and working under the supervision of the experienced agency guides. So basically, the Summer School of Philanthropy was an important institution which started giving formalized training to social workers. Now, in Chicago, the Hull House and the Chicago Commons, in collaboration with the University of Chicago, they organized a course in 1903, which later became the Chicago Institute of Social Sciences. So, this was another important institution which started teaching for social work. Um, so in other continents also, like in South America, you find people like Dr. Rene Sand of Belgium and Dr. Alejandro Del Rio of Chile. Both these physicians, they were, you know, they started the school in social medicine and social welfare, and over a period of time, it started into a full 2 year course program, and the curriculum was basically heavily weighted with subjects and field placements related to health. So that started in South America. Later on, it started in Africa. In Africa, also, schools patterned on the British model were established since 1924, and the first degree course was established in the University of Stellenbosch in 1932. So you find that from there it went on to South America, Africa. In Asia, the first Department of Sociology and Social Work was found in the Yenching University in 1922. Okay, but it could not survive the communist revolution, and therefore the studies were suspended. But the first school of social work in India, it in Asia, it went on to be the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, which was established in 1936, and it gradually it became a university in 64. It started as a Nagpada neighborhood house in Bombay, which was started by Father Clifford Manshard, and later on he collaborated with Sir Dorabji Tata Trust to start the first school of social work, and with educators like Dr. J.M. Kumarappa and others, they started with the MA and the PhD programs in social work at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, or TISS. After that, we come to Australia. In Australia, of course, you will also find that similar institutions which were derived from UK and USA, they started. And usually you will find that the first social work training institutes, they were established before World War II in Sydney, Melbourne, and Adelaide. And these started giving trainings to the students of social work. And in Australia, the practice of social work is largely carried out under the government auspice and a lesser degree under the non-government and religious auspice. So basically, it's the government which is looking after the training and uh, uh, training of the professional social workers. After this, we come to the professional organizations, rise of professional organizations. Now, professional organizations is basically, you may say, these organizations, they give some kind of, you can say that membership to the practitioners, or practitioners of social work. This was initially done in order to provide some kind of job placement to the graduates. So, for example, the Intercollegiate Bureau of Occupations was started in New York City in 1911. And also, after that, a lot of other organizations like American Association of Medical Social Workers, National Association of School Social Workers, Association for the Study of Community Organization, all these different associations were formed. Now, NASW, or National Association of Social Workers, this was basically an association which started in 1955, and this is currently the largest social work organization in the world. It basically gives, um, it is available to graduates of accredited social work programs of the Council of Social Work Education at the bachelor's and the master's degree level. And it's basically, it provides support and resources to the social work practitioners, and it also promotes the professional development. It establishes practice standards, it gives a code of ethics, and it promotes the humanitarian ideals of the values of social work. So these professional bodies, basically they provide a number of guidelines to the practitioners of social work. After this, we come to the Council of Social Work Education. The Council of Social Work Education, this was formed in 1952, and it became the standard setting organization for social work education globally. Um, Now, this has been concerned since 1974 with all levels of social work education, including preparation for the BA degree. And as of 2000, the Council of Social Work Education accredited 421 BSW programs and 139 MSW programs. Okay, this promotes high quality social work education, is achieved through the accreditations of the programs, conferences for educators, So it's organizes these conferences from time to time, provides professional development activities, task force work on educational programming, and the publication of journals. So these are the various work which is taken up by the Council of Social Work Education. Now we come to the current trends and practices. What are the current trends and practices in social work? First of all, we say that the career avenues has grown to a great degree, and the as a result of the growing problems like um, the crisis that is generally seen in today's world with regard to family disorganization, with regard to problems, health problems coming up like AIDS and other epidemics that is generally seen. Social workers, they have come in to be in quite a demand. Okay, and career options has increased in terms of teaching, research, consulting, of course, advocating policy positions in government agencies and research institutions, corporate social responsibilities. All of these are the various career avenues. So the career avenues is ever growing in social work now. Then licensing. Now, licensing is something which has also been given to social workers in several countries in order to provide, to restrict the practice of social work to qualified practitioners. So, only people who are properly qualified, who are having the, training on in social work or any degree in social work, only they are qualified to get the licensing and work uh, as a social worker. Now, this has become mandatory in all states and territories of USA, where it is important for the practitioners to basically get licenses from the professional bodies. However, this is something which is not seen in every country. In majority of the countries, you will find that this legal regulation or licensing is not there. This is largely because of the fact that social work has still not been considered to be a profession in these countries. Like in India, for example, they still do not have any you can say provision for providing licenses to the social work practitioners. After this, we come to the concept of privatization of social work practice. Traditionally, we see social work has been practiced in either government or in the private non-profit agencies. But a lot of people are now practicing in private fee for service settings and in private for business, for profit businesses. Now, these private fee for service organizations are practice organizations that are typical of those used by professionals like, physicians or lawyers, so that they provided services. Generally, they will provide some kind of counseling or a therapy services for an hourly fee. Okay, so you will find people who are practicing, as clinical social workers or other such social workers, and they are providing some kind of a service in terms of counseling and therapies at an hourly basis. Then private for non-profit business employing, generally owned by social workers, they are expanded, including drug and alcohol treatment programs, could be nursing homes, could be eating disorder clinics, could be adult daycare centers, companion services. All of these are also there, which are now coming up very majorly in most of the countries. Then the Bureau of the Labor Statistics estimated that the number of social workers who are self-employed will increase by 20% between 1990 and 2005. So we find that a large number of people now are coming to take up social work as a profession, and we find a number of people who are not only working under the government or for not for profit organizations, but also starting their own ventures, starting their own service establishments in order to provide social work services to the people. So we have seen here how social work has the started, how social work started, how it has been practiced over a period of time. how the various methods of social work, like um, um, social casework, social group work, and community organization, these have their origin in the various uh, uh, programs that were started earlier, and how the education for social work profession started in United Kingdom and USA, followed by other countries which basically started the social work education. Now, this unit, it specifically talks about the evolution of the social work tradition and education in India. So, how the evolution of social work as a discipline and as a field of practice, okay, it started in India, and how the education for social work started in India. What has been the history, basic philosophy of social work in India. Now, when we talk about the Indian context, we will find that a systematic analysis of social work, its philosophy, values, and principles can only be understood after we study the concept of social work and its evolution in India. Okay, and we will find that basically the social work profession, though it is primarily committed to solidarity with marginalized section of the society, most of the time we will find that the basic human rights are often violated. Okay, and lack of resources, it may lead to marginalization of the people by social, economic, and political systems. Now, these marginalized people, they become very vulnerable to deprivation and exploitation by those who have control over resources. And this is where this profession recognizes that marginalized people need to be empowered so that by themselves they play a decisive role for the development and welfare. And empowerment is the process of gaining control over self as well as the resources which determine the power. And generally in India, we will find that the philosophy has its base in the humanitarian and the democratic philosophy. Okay. Now we come to the evolution of social work and social service tradition. Now, what has been the social service tradition in India? Now, social reforms and social work, it can be traced from the beginning of the 19th century, especially from the time of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. So yesterday, when I was telling you about when we were talking about religious reforms, social reforms, I was telling you about how the sati system was there and it was abolished by the government the after the interventions of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. And however, one comes across vague reference to social welfare activities in ancient India, and in this, we will find that the lot of works, for people welfare or welfare of the subjects were taken up by the kings during that point of time, and basically this continued to be there during the medieval period as well, where individual kings, they used to take up different social welfare programs for the people in terms of developing infrastructure, in terms of developing coming up with hospitals, charity hospitals, or places where they can live or stay, for and then individually there also you will find in ancient period, usually, charity and religious devotion was a mainstay of the Indian culture, like in most of the period. And we have already seen that charity is considered to be one of the major mainstay of most religions across the world. And this is the similar case in India also, where since the ancient period, now ancient period is basically the period where um, we generally had people following the Hindu religion, and they were basically using the various uh, you can say the various religious scriptures like the Vedas, the Smritis, the Dharam Shastras. These were generally followed by the people, and most of these religious scriptures, they talk of what is known as the concept of charity and the importance of giving the charity. Okay. Now, so we have a lot of we find a lot of examples of charity and help given to the people in need during the ancient period. And since um, one of the popular methods during the ancient periods in India was basically, use of religious practices. Okay, there were one of the major, you can say that there were basically if we see the kind of community which existed during that period of time, then we will find that basically the communities at that point of time, they worked like extended families, where everybody catered to the needs of the everybody else. So basically, it was one large community which was looking after each other, and there was a very strong interrelationship between the people belonging to the different to the community. And with the gradual development of agrarian societies, and when the concept of private property and land, ownership of land, it came into being, charity became very important, virtue of the privileged sections to which has to be given on which was given on a voluntary basis. So by later Vedic period, you will find that the charity became quite institutionalized, and it became associated with the religious ideology. Then, when Buddhism came into being, when Buddhism came as an offshoot of Hinduism, it changed the character of the society to a class based agrarian society. And its philosophy attempted to explain the class differences and emphasized upon um, uh, you know, um, the charity. So the charity was not merely a means to ameliorate the conditions of the marginalized people, but also giving gifts to the Sangha, which were the centers of shelters and learning during the Buddhist period. Okay. And then there were guilds which arose as significant corporate body which was entrusted with political and economic functions during this period. So we find that basically the ancient period was mostly all about practicing social welfare through the concept of charity. And since most the political system was mostly a kingship, so basically it was left to the kings to carry out such work for the people, such welfare work for the people. Now we come to the medieval period in India, which is basically also more or less similar to what is known as the what we see during the medieval during the ancient period. Now, generally, the medieval period was a period of the Muslim Sultanate. Okay, and they were motivated and driven by the same spirit of social service in the fields of religion and education. So we will find that even in the medieval period, which lasted from 1206 to 1706 till the coming of the Britishers in India, we will find that mostly charity was considered to be the mainstay, and there were a couple of kings belonging to the Sultanate period at that point of time who started these various welfare measures for the for the population. They started all of these providing drinking water, building of a mosque, and provision of sarais, or basically they were places of or you can say that they were basically small hotels which were there for the travelers, but then they were free of cost. and then they started giving charity to poor. So all of these were done. In India, slavery was abolished as early as 1583, and a lot of changes with regard to equality among people, irrespective of their class and religion, that also came into being. Then there were other kind of assistance which was provided by the state at that point of time in as social welfare measures. Now, after 1800 period, that is the modern period in India, social reforms, they gradually, we find that the Indian society gradually went a lot of changes in this political, economic, and social spheres. And this was basically after the coming up of the Britishers. And these changes were based on Western ideas of property rights, rule of law, judiciary, and the emergence of the market economy. A lot of other things came up, like the development of the railways that started, new educational system, it came into being. Okay, then the ideas of liberty, justice, equality, all these started to be practiced, and this had a lot of impact on the family system, on the kinship system, marriage system, and the caste system. Okay, and thus we see that a lot of changes take place during the modern period with the coming up of the Britishers. Now, generally, if we see the reform movements, then the reform movements in India can be traced back to Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who sowed the seeds of religious and social reform movements in India. Then there were a number of other reformers which came up. For example, Jyotiba Phule was there, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar was there, Shashipad Banerjee, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Swami Dayanand, Swami Vivekanand. All these different people came from different parts of the country, and they concentrated their efforts on reforming certain features of the Indian society. Like they targeted child marriage, they targeted the caste system, the sati system. Then they also targeted, idol worship, and also they wanted to start the um, widow remarriage. So all these things were based on the ideals of justice, equality, liberty, and basically these were the major mainstay of the reform movements in that period. A number of societies also came into being. For example, you had the Arya Samaj, the Theosophical Society was there, Ramakrishna Mission was there, Servants of India Society, which was formed by Gopal Krishna Gokhale. So all of these societies, they came into being. Then, however, this social reform movement was confined to a small elite segment of the population, mostly consist of the English-speaking middle class. But when Mahatma Gandhi came on the scene of the freedom struggle, then there were a lot of changes that happened, and the entire social reform and political independence movement, it took a turn. Now, Gandhiji linked political movement with the social movement and transformed this into a mass movement with the participation of all sections of the population, who were mostly, notably, women and peasants and the lower caste. Now, the establishment of the first school of social work, we have seen this was the Sir Dorabji Tata Graduate School of Social Work, which came to be known as the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. It marks a watershed in training and education of the social work profession in India. And here you will find that you find that several institutes for social work were established in various parts of the country after the advent of the Sir Dorabji Tata Graduate School of Social Work. After independence, we will find that the government, they shifted towards the welfare approach and took several areas of social work under its purview. The popularity of ideas and social change, social development, institutional change, programs of family planning, elimination of mass poverty, all of these things eliminate, and this reflect the direction of social orientation towards seeking and striving to achieve the goals. So, thus, you find that there was a gradual shift in the welfare approach, and basically in India. After this, we come to some important concepts, which is given as the Gandhian ideology and the Sarvodaya movement. Now, this is important because it forms a mainstay of the Indian social work profession, and this is the major philosophy which is generally followed when we talk about the development of social work in India. Now, the Gandhian ideology refers to the philosophy as given by Mahatma Gandhi, who was one of the most important crusaders of not only social reform but also an important political leader of the Indian, movement, freedom movement. He exemplified the integration of political and social reforms, okay, and advocated that the country should not only be free from foreign bondage but should develop in the truest senses only if social evils do not hinder this process. Now, social reforms took a very important turn after Gandhiji came into the scene, into the political scene. Um, so now social reform activities were linked to the movement for the political independence as part of the integral socio-political movement. Secondly, it became a mass movement with the participation of women and peasants and the lower castes. Okay. And thirdly, the excuse me, with particular participation of women and peasants. And thirdly, the policies, the new social political movement encouraged the people to resort to direct action by their individual and collective effort. Okay, so basically, these three things were important. How social activities were linked to the movement for the political independence. Now, in this time, also, we will find that some an alien model of social welfare was abruptly introduced, and this was completely out of tune with the social conditions of the country. Okay, and also the national heritage of social reform and social welfare. And this was a model which was designed to meet the needs of the industrial urban society characterized by an increasingly complex division of labor, social differentiation, and specialization of function. Okay, now the newly emerging group of professional social workers, they failed to establish a link with this newly emerging group with the indigenous model of social welfare that had emerged at that point of time. And in this quest for legitimacy, uh, indigenous model of social welfare that has emerged at that point of time. So what was happening is the kind of model that was being introduced in India was quite different from the situation at that point of time. So a number of practitioners of social work, they started questioning this model, and in their quest for legitimacy, they leaned towards the pre-Gandhian social reform. Now, being the products of the Western education and belonging mostly to the new urban middle class, they found greater sense of affinity with the pre-Gandhians rather than with Gandhi and the post-Gandhi Sarvodaya group. Now, basically, the Gandhi's value system, they had molded the social policy of the government of India. Okay, and this efforts were reflected with the adoption of the Indian Constitution, which guarantees freedom of conscience, worship, speech, and political administration. And also, we find that this um, the progress towards a welfare state, focusing on the problems of social welfare and a thorough examination of the issues associated with them. So, so basically, you will find that the most of these Gandhiji's value system, they had molded the social policy of the government of India since the achievement of independence. Okay, and therefore, this Gandhian philosophy, it came out to be very important when we talk about the Indian school of social work. Now, after this, we come to the Sarvodaya and the social work. Gandhiji, he conceptualized a social welfare as Sarvodaya. Sarvodaya means the well-being of all in all phases of life. So he talked about this that basically everybody need to um, come overcome this slumber, and he paid special emphasis on the welfare of the lowest underprivileged groups. Okay, and this could include uh, this so basically, at the same time, a special emphasis was made on the welfare of the generally the marginalized sections, which included particular caste groups. Then there were women, the destitute, and the rural folk. Okay, and the constructive program not only emphasized the well-being but also dealt with the all aspects of. I'm sorry. Now, what happened is this Gandhian approach, this was based on all aspects of individual, social, and national life. So it not only covered individual, but it also covered the national life. And at that point of time, since the freedom movement was going on, this was very much linked to the freedom movement. So Mahatma Gandhi, he advocated the cause of the social reforms and he dedicated himself totally to eradication of several social evils that existed during that point of time, which included caste-based discrimination, discrimination based on religion. Then there were discriminations made on certain groups of the population, like women. Okay, and he promoted these intergroup relations, created some favorable public opinion, launched mass programs, and introduced changes at the mass level or the grassroots level. Now, Gandhiji's philosophy was based on the dignity and worth of every individual and believed that every individual, okay, has a basic dignity. And he was also believed that there is a belief in the dignity of labor and in the right of all people to earn a livelihood. And he did not impose his views on other people, but showed understanding and love for them. His another important concept was the Sarvodaya concept, okay, which talk about the values of Swarajya and Lokniti. Swarajya means, having your own governance system, okay, that the people should be able to rule themselves. And Lokniti, that is, people have to govern themselves in order to obtain equity and justice. Okay, and this philosophy accepted that people are knowledgeable, but their situation and the ways to manage them gives them given the necessary resources. It also acknowledged that they have the right to plan their own destinies and determine their lifestyles, and appreciated that local solutions must be congruent with the local resource realities. So this was basically a kind of a belief in the social reconstruction program, and this was the goal of their constructive activities in the rural areas. So they talk about establishing an egalitarian society where everybody was free from exploitation. Okay, everybody was equal, and the focus was basically on the marginal groups. Okay, of groups of people who were suffering from destitution. Okay, then it also aimed to tackle the social problems at that point of time, like untouchability, which was practiced against certain castes, and also and this was to be brought about through a radical transformation of the social order, which was based on exploitation. Now, basically, you can say that Gandhiji and his thoughts on Sarvodaya, they prepared the groundwork for establishing a social work profession in India. So the professional social work that we follow is they take their philosophy very much from Gandhian philosophy, and social work in India is not merely ameliorative and corrective, but also get towards a transformation of the social structure in order to establish a more egalitarian society. And most of the attention was devoted to the rural society, because Gandhiji said that the rural areas are the spirit of India, okay, and that is where majority of the population live. So this is how basically we find the Gandhian philosophy as the basic, or you can say the basic philosophy behind social work in India. After this, we talk about the interface between voluntary and the professional social work. Now, voluntary work has also been regarded as the relief of distress or providing assistance to underprivileged or marginalized sections. And usually it is associated with charity, it is associated with sympathy, philanthropy, and the spiritual urge to assist those who are in need. Okay. Voluntary work has become one of the most exalted values, that it underlines the true spirit of dedication with little motive for personal enhancement, profit, prestige, or political mileage. Now, voluntary social work, it has a very long tradition in India, and usually you will find that a lot of organizations initially they started their community activities based on this model of voluntary action, and basically most of the work related to philanthropy, charity, cooperation, and uh, basically you can say um, um, so they basically started this voluntary work, in order to bring about improvement in the conditions of people, to help them overcome their problems. Okay. This also became a major philosophy behind philanthropy, cooperation, and charitable disposition towards the poor. Now, compassion towards the downtrodden, it has always been a very important pillar of the Indian culture. And this voluntary service has been synonymous with the honorary or unpaid service. And thus, a paid worker does not get similar respect, and the professional social worker is held in a lesser esteem in India. So, that is one of the major problems. Though in the present context, the term voluntary encompasses all organized social work, paid or unpaid, under the management of government or non government agencies. Voluntary social work without reward still occupies a significant place in the Indian society. So, volunteerism has a very important place in India. And because of this, you will find that basically in India, the professional social work concept, it could not be found, to be quite, um you can say, important. And because the voluntary social work, it occupied a very significant place in the Indian society. Now, the fact that the history of social work has existed since the birth of the civilization, it can be supported by the fact that early men they took initiatives and efforts to support and protect weak in face of danger. Um, Apart from this, you will also find that social insurance, it came from some other important social structures, like you had the joint family system in India. Okay. The panchayat system, the community, that protected the old and the weaker members of the society. So besides this normal philanthropic urge of man, religion also played a very crucial role, because people they used to provide their services as a part of the religious tradition. Now, the philosophy of social work and development activities, they received a new impetus when Mahatma Gandhi came into the scene. And from thereon we find that there has been a gradual shift in the ideal of the welfare state. So what developed in India later on as a result of this has been known as a welfare state. That is finally the government taking these social service into its own hand. Okay, and they looking it's a government whose major duty is to basically look into the welfare of the people. Okay, and that is why we say it as a welfare state. So in response to the changing demands of the society at that point of time, like industrial society, um, this concept of welfare state has undergone a lot of changes in conceptualization and in interpretation. Now, and the efforts are no longer just limited to providing assistance and services to those in need, but also to develop an organized and systematic activity in providing the relief services and assistance to facilitate adjustment of individuals with their specific environment. Okay, so it is not just helping the people in need, but overall, coming up with some kind of, carrying out organized and systematic activities to provide relief to overall the families and the communities. Now, and with the different with due course of time, when we see there was this requirement for training of the individuals who could actually carry forth the work of this tradition of volunteerism, and then gradually in change to what is known as a professional uh, uh, practice. Now, generally, we will find that there is a thin difference between voluntary and professional social work. Although we will find that the professional social work is primarily using the techniques which are generally said to be scientific, and of course, the mode of delivery is different for both of them. Now, there is an increasing focus upon the need to build network between the state agencies and the voluntary sectors to facilitate the effectiveness of the management of the development programs. Now, after the concept of Gandhian philosophy and social work, we come to the social work education in India. Now, we have already seen how the social work started in Social Science League in Bombay in 1920, which was kind of a short voluntary, course for voluntary social workers who were engaged in the, um, uh, you know, um, basically in the welfare work. And the first professional institution that provided training, which was established in 1936, which is the Sir Dorabji Tata Graduate School of Social Work, or TIS as it is known today. Till 1942, this institute admitted students every alternate year, and it did not seek affiliation to university as the management felt that it would hinder the freedom of the program. But then later on, it changed into agency in 1964. Apart from that, there were a number of other states also where some institutes were established, like in Maharashtra, in Tamil Nadu, in Karnataka. They started with a cluster of institutions where trainings were started for people belong in for social work. Then this also started to cover other states as well. For example, Punjab, Jammu Kashmir, and other hilly states of northern India. After independence, you will find that a number of other colleges also came up with, like Kashi Vidyapeeth, College of Social Service, then Gujarat Vidyapeeth, then the Delhi School of Social Work. All of these were different departments, were different schools of social work which started. Besides this, there arose some department of social work in some known universities like University of Delhi, Lucknow University. Then you have the Madras School of Social Work. All of these basically they started having the basic course on social work. So you will find that these were established about the length and breadth of the country everywhere. Now, uh, if we see the current education scenario of social work in India, then you will find that a lot of almost all the universities they have established at least one you can say department of social work, and most of them are actually have developed their own curriculum, their own standards of education, okay, their research practices, social work education training, all of these. And one of the important decisions which was taken over by the UGC, that's the University Grant Commission, was the setting up of the review committee for social work education, to in order to make the the make the syllabus more relevant to the present times, to the existing needs of the society. And also we find that after this we say that there came an association of schools of social work in India, which is a voluntary standard setting organ, and a training institutions which acts as a spokesman for the social work educators. Then this also distance education also started in several universities. For example, Indira Gandhi National Open University, or IGNU, it is a pioneer in distance education, and they have started bringing giving up distance education in India in the field of social work. And it aims to develop professional manpower capable of performing tasks and functions that ultimately achieve the goals and profession of social work. Now, despite the growth of social work in India, in both education field as well as in the professional field, there are certain concerns for the development of social work education till date, even today. For example, first of all, you can say that the primary concern is to ensure a systematic development of social work education in terms of geographical distribution and affiliation to recognized boards and university. So this is one important thing. Then how you bring about a more relevance in the syllabi development. Okay. Then how do you basically address the key concerns relating to the developing teaching or the research material for social work education at all levels, and the developing research expertise and fundings of the research projects. Then after this also we another you can there has been some other progress in this direction. For instance, the University Grants Commission, it has a panel on social work education, and it suggests some suitable modifications to the profession from time to time. Then there is always also the Department of Social Welfare, the Government of India. They have established um, uh, a separate division of planning, research, evaluation, and monitoring, which has far-reaching implications in the um, basically in monitoring, evaluation, and research in social work. And it works in association with the Planning Commission, and it conducts the research studies and compilation of statistics. So this is all about the social work, emergence of social work in India and abroad. So in this first in this first block, we have discussed in length the various aspects of social work, like the basic concepts of social work that we talk about. We have discussed about the how the history of social work can be traced to several countries like Britain and USA, and the social welfare movements in these countries, how the various methods of social work they have um, basically how the methods of social work have come into being in the past in these countries of UK, USA, how they have evolved over a period of time, and finally how the social work education per se has evolved over these periods of time. And this also includes social work education in India and what is the past, present, and the future trend of social work education and basic concerns related to social work education in India. So this is all about our first unit, the first block. Any questions at all relating to whatever we have taught till now?
Still no question, ma'am.
Yes, Siddhartha, tell me.
I said I don't have question yet.
Oh, you don't have question.
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So Kamaruddin or Nasreen, Shabnam, Khairullah, any question from your side? Anybody who wants to ask something or maybe just want to add something?
Excuse me, madam, I have a question.
You have a question?
Yes, madam.
Yes, tell me.
Could you please explain the caste system? I don't know. I didn't get that as you already explained it, but I didn't know about the caste system.
What exactly do you want me to explain?
What is the caste system? Is it government system, like governance system? What?
The governance system.
Yes, the
What
caste
governance system?
system. Is it a kind of governance system or something like that? What is the caste system?
No, I was actually. You want to ask about the caste,
Yes, yes, the
the
caste
caste
system.
system. Acha, the caste
Yes.
system. Okay, okay. So basically, a caste system is practiced, is very much prevalent in the Indian subcontinent, and basically, it is the you can say that it is basically the categorization of people based on birth. Okay, so it is you can say it's an institution where people are divided into different castes based on their birth, and this is a very typical feature of a Hindu society. And within India you will find that there are basically four castes which have been divided. So one of them is known as the Brahmin, the second is the Kshatriyas, the third is the Vaishyas, and the fourth caste is the Shudras. Now, the Brahmins are the teaching caste. So, this is basically the caste which is responsible for teaching the various religious scriptures. They look after the teachings of, and learnings in education of the society. They also carry out various religious rituals. So, they are considered to be the at the topmost level of the caste structure. Then the second comes the Kshatriyas. So these are the warrior caste. So generally, you have most of the soldiers and the administrators generally belong to this particular caste. The third is the Vaishyas. Vaishyas are the basically the business and the traders, the businessmen and the traders, and finally the Shudras. This is the caste which looks after the or which assist all the other three castes above it. So this is basically a hierarchy, which is a very typical, structure of a Hindu society. And caste is basically based out of birth. So it's basically an individual is born into a caste, and you cannot change your caste at any point of time during your life. So now there have been a lot of changes. I mean, see, it's a very complex thing. It's a very complex concept. And but what you just need to understand that this basically is based on the categorization of people based on birth of an individual. Okay, so people used to be they used to be differentiated on the base of the caste system. So earlier, the caste systems, it used to be very fluid. So one caste member, a person who was born in one caste could be changed into another caste. He could he could move to other caste. This was known as a Varna system, which was basically more based on the profession. But now, after certain years, basically over a period of time when a lot of changes happened, these became very strict structures, departmentalized, compartmentalized structures, where movement from one caste to another caste became very difficult. Although initially they started as being, divisions based on profession, later on these became divisions based on the birth. Okay, and now you will find that a lot of changes have come up, and there were a lot of earlier there used to be a lot of restrictions based on how these people from different castes they could interact with another. Marriages between persons belonging to different castes was totally not allowed. Okay, then there were also kind of strict restrictions depending upon who you can eat and dine with, whom you can interact with. But over the period of time, these have changed, and now all the caste system is still there. It is still there, but all these restrictions, you can say that they have become very much diluted. Although in the rural areas in India, still you find that a lot of caste system and discrimination based on caste is still there. And but the changes are coming, and so this is basically a stratification, a system of social stratification in the among the Hindu society. So this is a caste system. Okay,
Yes,
I hope I have made myself clear.
I have another question.
Yes,
Could you
yes,
explain the
Carola, tell me.
sati? What is sati?
What?
What is sati? I didn't
What
get
is?
that. Mm, You told that sati and another point I didn't remember about it. Sati, I didn't get that. What you explained.
No, I'm not getting your point.
Uh, Sati.
He means Sati,
SATI.
tradition of Sati.
Sati. Yes.
What traditional?
That the wife is, I think the wife is going to die, or I don't know what she doing
Oh,
after
the sati
when she
system.
become widow.
Oh, okay. The sati system. Actually, what happened in the in around you can say in olden days, there was this social evil which existed in some parts of country, where when a husband when a person died, you know, the wife of that person was generally burnt alive along with the dead body of the husband, you know. And this was practiced in many parts of India, and over a period of time, this was made illegal in India. This is like I'm talking a lot of time. So the practice of sati was made illegal in the year 1829. So since till 1829, this was one of the practice which was a very inhuman practice which was carried out, and usually the widows had a very lower place in the society. So many societies they used to have this practice where they used to burn the wife of the husband alive with the dead body of the person. But that practice is no longer there, and in all the societies you will have and more of one or more of these practices which was there. So in India, this was a practice which was there in some parts, but Raja Ram Mohan Roy was a person who was responsible for putting a ban on sati. And in 1829, the legislation to to ban sati was brought, and basically that is how this practice was totally stopped. Okay, so this is basically that was a social evil that existed in India, and it was banned in the year 1829. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for the explanation, madam. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else would like to say anything? Any?
Yes, ma'am. I don't have any question. Today study was very amazing and very clear. I don't have any
Okay.
question, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you all of you for joining me for this session. And I will see you again next week, where we will take the studies further. So we will start with the second block in BSW 121. And another thing is that the time is slightly changed for the next meet, when we will meet again next week. So you please refer to the time that has been sent to you by the study center. Okay. So
Okay,
I will see
madam.
you.
Our next study will be at next week or next week.
Yes, please. Yes, it will be next week, and the time will be slightly changed. So you just
Okay.
look into the messages, okay, when you get from the study center.
Okay, madam. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you all of you for joining me on today's session. I will see you again next week. Till then, have a great week ahead. Thank you for joining me. Okay.
Thank you for
Bye.
your
Thank
time,
you.
madam.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.